Oh, sweetie, I see that your wrist is not quite right. But, oh, actually, your first finger is out of place. Oh, wait, don't forget your bumpy thumb on your bow hold. Sometimes hearing all of those things can just be overwhelming. So let's talk about the magic of choosing one thing. This is Adventures in Suzuki Parenting. When we're practicing, sometimes I say that we want to master one thing in the practice. It could be mastering one note or two notes. Usually it's something very small, but we want to have a little something that feels like it gets a lot better every practice. The secret to doing this is to focus on one thing at a time. Choosing one thing is really understandable when you think about learning something new. If you haven't played an instrument before and are not learning alongside your child, pick up the instrument and try to work on what they are learning. It's really hard. There's a lot to think about. Most likely, if you're violin, your bow is going crooked, your fingers are not quite going in the right place, you accidentally hit a wrong string. Those kinds of things are all the things your child is thinking about all at once. And so when we are trying to really get good at one thing, it's important to kind of eliminate the other things in order to make that one thing better. That empathy of the complexity is a really important place to start with. If you already do play a musical instrument, think about learning something else new. Maybe you've never knit before, and you try, and it's really hard. Or think about what it felt like to learn how to ride a bike, or what it feels like to learn to paint for the first time. It's awkward. It doesn't turn out the way you want it to. It's just a little bit hard. So it's important to kind of remember that that is where your child is. There is only one secret to dealing with your child's feeling of overwhelm. Choose just one thing. It's actually kind of magic. Decide on what you are going to be working on before you get going. Maybe it's a position point, maybe it's new notes, maybe it's a specific bowing, maybe it's a kind of tone, maybe it's a dynamic. There are so many different things to pick from, but it's important to choose only one thing. How do you know what to choose when the list is so long? I like to try to pick something that is usually the oldest first. It's probably close to being mastered. It's probably close to being there and the student understands it well. And so I want those skills to be mastered before I go on to something new. That's not always the case. If we're really working on a particular sound because that's what this particular song calls for, then I know I might really work on that. So it doesn't matter too much what you are going to pick. But what does matter is that it is only one thing. It means you cannot interrupt your child with anything else. And if something else goes wrong, it gets a free pass. Nothing else is mentioned. And they have to learn how to let some of those things go as well. Sometimes when we're learning one thing, something else gets worse. And so just realize that that is a possibility and it might happen and it's okay. Even better, if you're having a hard time picking what might be a good place to start, is to ask your teacher. Your teacher probably has some really good suggestions on what they want you to be learning and focusing on in every practice. What happens when it still feels like it's falling into the disaster zone? Well, that's a time when it still needs to be made easier. It may need to be a smaller section. It may need to be played slower. or there still may be too many skills that are being focused on. So figure out how you can make it easier to really gain a deep level of mastery. I hope this is helpful and you are able to really strive to choose one thing. I know it is a lot easier said than done. I fall into the trap of trying to fix all the things all the time, and especially with my own children. So know that we are always striving to do this better, and there will be times when it just doesn't work out, and that is also okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so that you can get tips every week. Happy practicing.